to the Books Applied podcast, presented by WSL Leadership. In this podcast, we talk about an awesome book and how to apply it to your work, sport, or life. I'm your host, Iggy Perillo. Thanks for joining me. In today's episode, I'll be talking about the book We Should All Be Millionaires by the author Rachel Rodgers. And joining me to talk about this book, I have my special guest, Tierra Bonds. Tierra, tell us a little bit about what you do and tell us about you for a hot second.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me, Iggy. So I'm Tierra Bonds, the founder of Take Charge Consulting. And in my company, in my work, I'm helping my clients with credit. So personal credit so that they can get their first home or do a refi, get good credit cards to use the, travel rewards and those types of benefits. And then I also help businesses build business credit that's separate from their personal credit.
And you were the one who recommended this book to me because it seems like it's in your field of like money. It's literally a book about money and how people relate and interact with money. And I know that's the work that you do. What about this book struck you as being interesting or useful? Like, how did this book catch your eye?
Yeah, so I read it in a book club with some other amazing entrepreneurs in the Seattle area. And I didn't know about it, but once we decided on that book, I was super excited. And in reading it, the biggest thing that stood out to me was this kind of limiting belief that some of us may have that $1 million is too much. And that's kind of where I was at. I never wanted to be a millionaire. That didn't sound like anything, one, achievable or two, desirable. And in the book, Rachel talks about, there's so much that we can do with money. So it's not the money that's important, but it's the power that it gives us and what we can do with it. And that kind of took away that limiting belief that I had, where I remember doing some visioning on my business and my goal was to make $100,000 a year. And so this book kind of opened my eyes to really seeing what money can do for us. $100,000, that's great. But when I take care of my parents and my grandparents and, my future family and children, it's nothing. And it leaves no area for me to donate to causes that I care about, to, use money in a positive way in those aspects. So that was the biggest thing I got from the book.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting when she says we should all be millionaires. It's not that we should all have $1 million of income coming in every year. It's we should have $1 million. I don't know if she would use this word exactly, but like of wealth. So we might own some property. We might have some, like a retirement fund. We might have actual income coming in from a job we have or something like that. So we have, when she said we should all be millionaires, she's saying the $1 million doesn't mean a paycheck of $1 million, which I think seems weirdly like a lot. Like, I don't know what you need to do to be paid $1 million, but to have like, retirement fund, own your home, own, whatever property you have, and kind of other pieces and other investments along the way. So I think it's just sort of a different, to me, there was this other different idea of like what it means to be a millionaire. It's not quite the same thing as we think of like Scrooge McDuck with like a bag of money. It's just like a different sort of concept around that, which I thought was also fascinating because it separated out sort of us and them from like, there's millionaires and then there's like the rest of us. There's those 5 millionaires and then everyone, me and all my friends. So it made it a little more realistic and tangible in a certain way. And I thought it was really fascinating. Just that sort of her different twist on what it means when she says we should all be millionaires. That's what she's talking about.
I agree. And that's a great point, Iggy, because she brings up, how to become a millionaire. And she describes people that she knows. So one of them was herself. And it's, she reached that status through her business mainly. And then she brings up her friend who reached it via real estate. And both situations, both examples that she showed had different areas of where money was being generated. It wasn't just, an income from your job. But the two examples, her with her business and then her friend with real estate, made me realize that with both of those, credit was a factor. So you can't, unless you already have, $1 million or almost, to buy a home cash, you're going to need credit to invest in real estate. And there's a couple other ways as well, but also with her and her law firm, she was, credit cards and, using money to start her business, which of course is a result of credit as well. So I just wrote an article about how the credit gap relates to the racial wealth gap. So I thought it was interesting my second time reading the book, hearing those examples and seeing that huge role that credit plays in building wealth. So
yeah, like, and credit being used as like an investment for your business, as an investment for something, versus credit being used as to pay my daily bills and to pay, like if you're using credit to live your lifestyle, it's very different than using credit to, buy property so that then you can, sell property later, stuff like that, or have an investment property, like a mortgage is credit essentially, like these are things that ways that you get access to more funds to do things, with it. And I think you mentioned something else in there about how, there are different pathways. And, in the book, she talks about she has her acronym for bad decision making, which is like broke ass decision making is her acronym BAD, which I thought was awesome. And we make these decisions based on, who knows? We learn from our family, our friends, like we're influenced by the people around us. Like we have these ideas of what we think we should be doing with our money and financially. And and I think she is pretty explicit about saying she's speaking to women, and she's speaking to women of color because that is who she is. That's like her experience, but also who she wants to like talk to and be like, hey, you're this backbone supporting your friends, your family, your boyfriend, you're this, you're that. And you actually need to invest in yourself a little bit too. And she tells this story about someone who developed, I think it was another real estate sort of friend story. And they developed a way to, they're like a real estate agent. So they found a way to find the right houses and sell them well, and develop their own sort of spreadsheet and system. And then their boyfriend shows up and is like, hey, I really want to do this thing. Can you still help me with my thing? Can you help me with whatever? And she was, thoughtful and could like figure stuff out. And so she invested all her time and money into getting her boyfriend's business going. And then at the end of that, he's like, cool. And she's like, great. What about my business? What about my thing, my business, my ideas? She basically put all her effort and energy into supporting someone else at not like at her own expense, but like, and just gave herself none of that same support and energy, and could have been doing the same and building her own personal business. And so she would say that's like a broke ass decision. Like she's deciding to keep herself in this sense of poverty, of not like growing and expanding and building her wealth and moving toward her having $1 million, her being a millionaire, but doing that exact same thing she should be doing for herself, but doing it for someone else and for her boyfriend, or in that example. And she's like, yeah, like why you like do that same thing for yourself? You can do it. Like it's okay to like invest that energy and attention to yourself.
Yes, I think that's something that especially Black women struggle with, but women in general. We are, the caretakers, and, we take care of the kids, the husband, the house, the dogs, all of it. And so funny, I was just on a call today. Yes, this morning, someone was talking about these exact struggles, and mentioned, the role that mental health plays in all of that. And she's an entrepreneur, and said, I'd almost rather just work a 9 to 5 and just, be done, so that she could better attend to all of those things. But I think the real thing is, if you are in a relationship, having that partnership and kind of doing those things together.
Right.
Especially if you own a business, because it's not just 9 to 5, it's all around the clock. And then you add everything else to it. It can get overwhelming. So
yeah, she tells this other story about, it was a married woman, and she's like, well, I want to do this. I want to expand my business in these ways, but I have to pick up the kid from school, and I have to go, go to tennis tournaments, whatever, take the kid to a tournament on the weekend. So I can't do it then. So when I don't have time to do it. And like, sort of like Rachel's voice comes in with like, get your husband to pick up the kid. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you doing this all? Like, why are you taking this all on yourself? And where's your husband? Like, maybe he should take the kid to the tennis tournament on the weekend, or, something like that. Like, maybe you need to figure out how your relationship gives you, like, you're taking too much on in that relationship and not supporting your own business growth, your own business development. So it was just interesting, her take on, like managing your relationships and how you relate to people and how you communicate with people to make it fair and equitable within your family, within your, whatever your situation is that you have now. And so that's not, I don't know, it's not an excuse, but like, so that you don't have that excuse. So you're like, and so you have the time and the energy to build your own business. I think she also talks about how if you want to just work a 9 to 5, you can eventually save enough money to have $1 million. It's going to take you 32 years. It takes like a long time. It's not going to be very soon, but you can do it. Yeah, that's one route. And I think this was sort of the classic route of you work for one company for your career and then you get a pension and then whatever. Like, what business offers a pension anymore? Is that even a thing? And we don't all have 32 years. We want to do other things with our lives. And so entrepreneurship, yeah, she's huge into entrepreneurship as a way, or like entrepreneurship. She's not so into like the side hustle, but I think this idea of like building your own business or doing something for yourself versus working for someone else, like giving your work, bringing value to a company, and then the company then extracts that value out and pays you like a tiny bit back, versus doing work and investing into your own company and you get all of the benefits of that. All that value comes back to you, not just like some slice of a paycheck. But I think there is comfort in being in a part of a business and having a steady 9 to 5, having, someone take care of this and that and the HR department, whatever. I think people do find comfort in that. It's consistent often for folks.
I agree. And when you mentioned the 32 years to save to be a millionaire, it's saving, but then it's also not doing anything.
Oh yeah, right. You can't spend any money. If you only save and spend no money, 32 years, $1 million, that's Rachel Rogers math right there. Yeah.
Yeah. That coffee that you want on a Wednesday every week. No, can't do that.
Not going to happen. Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. And I really appreciate how she makes it so much more human, like throughout the book. Were there other examples that caught your mind as you were reading through this the second time, apparently?
Yes. Other examples. She talks about kind of creating the I think it was within the 10K and 10-day challenge, and doing a cancel spree. So going through your bank statements, your credit card statements, and looking at everything and getting rid of the stuff that you don't use, that doesn't serve you. But then she also adds this little tidbit, unless you really like it. And I
right.
really,
yeah,
I really love that, because most, as she mentions, most financial experts or financial gurus, they limit that. It doesn't make sense to work so hard and make money and then not be able to treat yourself. I like that her solution is make more money.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Which is a great solution. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where the entrepreneurship comes up a lot in her teachings, I think. And I think that's, and for some people, it's okay, but we all still have wants, whether they're small or a little bit bigger. We all have wants, and we shouldn't have to sacrifice everything in order to get to where we want to be financially. And I like that she stresses that. So
yeah, it sort of is this balance of happiness. Like if you have 10 different streaming services and you only watch one of them, yeah, cancel 9 of them. But she's not saying cancel them all. You need to keep that other $20, whatever it is. She's like, cool, like. And be thoughtful about it. Be thoughtful about what you're using and what you're investing your time in, your energy in, all these different things. Because the goal is actually happiness. The goal isn't to have a certain number of zeros in your bank account. Like that, I think
Correct.
Actually comes out. And I think you actually mentioned this like way at the beginning during your intro, that the idea of having more wealth and having that we should be a millionaire is not just so you can look at it and like have the Scrooge McDuck pool of money that you swim in. Like you are actually doing something with it. And I think there's this piece of this that comes up when I talk to people. She's very interesting in talking about pricing and selling your stuff at a good rate. And I'm wondering about your thoughts. I have tons of thoughts on it because I've seen people kind of go through all different angles of that. Yeah, I see you nodding. What are your thoughts on the pricing your services kind of angle that she talks about?
Yes, that reminds me when she talks about kind of first putting an offer out there or first starting a business, and you're asking for a sell, and to not be worded out about that, to get rid of the like obviously don't sound salesy, but get rid of the shame and those limiting beliefs behind asking for a sell, because you are providing value. You're providing a service or product to someone, and it's something that they need. So, and there's just an exchange of money. So she makes that feel a little bit less weird, but also reading this, I did raise my prices.
Oh, great. Good.
For consulting, which I had previously done like a year before that, I think. And so reading this led me to raise my prices. And my limiting belief was that, it's already hard for people that I really want to serve, for them to come up with what I was charging initially. And so raising it, how am I going to still be able to serve those people? So that was my limiting belief. And I think she did mention in there, get creative, find other ways. And that's something that I did as well. Finding nonprofits that I can work with, serve their clients with credit education, credit repair, credit building, and kind of get paid by the nonprofit rather than the consumer. So it helps everyone. It helps me. It helps the client be able to get help with their credit and not have that barrier of money being an issue where they can't get help. And then it helps the nonprofit further serve their clients. So, if their mission is to help people get into homes, but they can't help them with the credit part, I'm able to come in and do that. So it helped me eliminate that limiting belief of, oh no, how can I help the people that I want to help? And she, says, get creative, think of other ideas, partnerships, being strategic about it. So.
Yeah. And I feel like that I've heard that same sort of angle from other folks who are like, I really want to work with this certain population. It's a population that I know doesn't have money. How do I work for them? But I need to get paid. I need to have a business. So I just need to charge. So they get into this mental cycle of like, I need to charge less and less and less so I can be accessible to people who have very little money, because that's this population I want to serve, right? And then in the end, as a business person, you're just discounting your services. So you're not making any money, and you're serving this like tiny little population that can't are on the brink of not being able to afford your services anyway. And I love the solution being get creative. I like what you did. You found a partnership. So you were working with a nonprofit who could then sort of bridge some of that gap, and also charging what you're worth. Cause I think it's different as an entrepreneur and as a business owner when you feel I feel like I've worked for people and felt underpaid working for other people. I don't want to work for myself and feel underpaid. That's stupid to be like, yeah, and I've done this before. I've done a job and been like, oh, I should have charged more for that. There's some pieces of my work where it's per contract or per, little project. But I think I've come around to figure out how much I need to charge so I feel good about the work I'm doing. No one likes feeling underpaid. No one likes feeling undervalued. And so you have to value yourself well enough. And I think it somehow eventually sort of bites you in the butt if you keep discounting your services. You're like, well, I want to serve these people, but I'm getting underpaid, but I feel bad about being underpaid, but I feel good about who I'm serving. Cool. Eventually, I think you're just not going to do great work because you're like, yeah, but I'm getting underpaid. Oh, wait, I could be making so much more if I was doing X, Y, Z, if I was doing this in a different way or had a different pricing structure. So I love it that you found nonprofits to partnership with in your work so that you can still be accessible and still serve the people you want to serve. And I've just seen some people wrestle with this. They're like, oh, I want to work with this one population. They don't have money. How do I even do it? They can't even pay me minimum wage. I'm like, I think you're in the, you're setting yourself up for a tough time. And that I think described it well. It's a limiting belief.
Correct. And for me, it even came up when I switched to the nonprofit space. That limiting belief was still there because it's, they're a nonprofit, they're doing good in the world. I really want to help their clients. So yeah, it was funny how it came out again. And then thank you for setting this up, because then I read the book again and Rachel Rogers was in my head saying that you're charging too low with nonprofits now. So
yeah,
fix that.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting though, because her other angle was she was a lawyer originally. And so then she started sort of doing her own sort of law work and offering products, like law related products separately from her law firm work, and then kind of built her business, one part of her business from that. And now does coaching and consulting and other things. But she was saying that as she was charging more and more for the things she was selling, she was then able to donate money more in a more targeted, specific way and actually hire people to work for her. And so she was doing more good by hiring staff and serving people that way, by being a good boss to them and paying them a really good wage and supporting them, than she was before by discounting her services to sort of help a bunch of sort of people do a little bit of good. She would value, I think she describes valuing the impact of being able to have staff and employ people as totally different from donating a couple bucks here, a couple bucks there, discounting my service here, a little bit there, a little bit.
Yes. And she also talks about, being able to create your own nonprofit, and once you make more money, you'll if you don't create your own, you'll have more to give to a nonprofit. Whereas when you say, a few bucks here and there, it's exactly what I was doing in the beginning of my business. So charging more, not discounting our services and our value allow us to give back.
Oh yeah, and she does this little list of like, before I was charging like $400 for some product she was selling, and now she charges like thousands of dollars for similar, the next evolution of those products. And she's like, and I gave $200,000 to this charity. I hired this many staff, like, I don't know, whatever, 3 or 4, whatever it was at the time. I've done this and this and this. So her impact is so much bigger on the lives of these people. And she found like the nonprofit doing exactly the work, serving exactly the people she wanted to serve. And she's like, great, they're already doing it. Here you go. Exactly. Have $100,000. Or she did like a fundraiser for someone else where like $200,000 was raised during a thing she was a part of, to support these things, which has a huge impact versus her offering 20% off a $400 product.
Yes.
It's fascinating. I think it's just this different idea of, and I think I just love her perspective on what you can do, like the power of like the money you have. And you don't serve anyone by undervaluing your services. Like not even the people who are getting those services are supported by you undervaluing yourself, essentially.
I agree. Yeah. Something that I never thought about was my main thing, like I said, was I want to make sure that they can afford it. But that's got me in trouble with clients where I've, just discounted it way too low. And then I don't get that ideal client that I want, that really wants, good credit, that really wants to buy their first home. And then it ends up causing me more work on the back end. So I'm getting paid less and it's causing me more work. And this person doesn't even want it. So it literally helps no one.
It's a lose situation there, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's something to be said for as an entrepreneur and a business owner, working for with the people you want to work with, right? And the people you want to work with need what you have. They understand the value of what you have. And if they need what you have and they understand the value of it, they will pay for it, and those are actually, when they talk about like the ideal client or whatever, this sort of mind game that we play, it's like, what's your ideal client? I'm like, the person who pays me the money, like that, in some ways, yes, but in some ways, no. There's personality, there's fit, there's like desire for the thing that you have and willingness to engage with it and do that. Because I think we both work with humans on a very personal level that is, hey, I'm going to help you like transform your credit for you. I help people sort of transform their leadership and evolve that into a new place. And it's very personal. I think it's very probably unique to each person. I know there's like steps, there's process, there's this, there's that, there's pieces of it that I think are common that we bring probably to our practices. But the reality is it's the person that we're working with, the individual that wants that change to happen or wants something new and different, and offering them, if they want some change or transformation to happen, but they don't want it bad enough to pay full price for it, they don't really want it to happen. They're probably not going to be a great client.
Yeah. Yep. I've learned.
Yeah, for sure. Were there other pieces of this book that you loved or that, did you listen to the audiobook? Were you the one telling me that you listened to the audio of it? Yes. I did the paper reading, but I heard the audiobook, like you liked like her actual voice. Rachel Rodgers does the audio for the audiobook.
Yes.
Sounds really fun.
Yeah, I started reading it and then I switched to the audio, and it was just, especially when she says things like the BAD, you can just hear her voice like, and it's like, okay, got it, Rachel. It's like a friend talking to you is how I felt, a friend and a mentor. But yeah, I definitely recommend the audio. Another one of my favorite parts was the 10K in 10 day challenge.
Oh, right. You mentioned that. Yeah. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So the book club that I was with, we all did it. We set our own number goals. So she says, whatever you think you can do, add 30% to that. And then go from there. And that's your goal for the 10 days. And so basically just choose the amount, decide a reward. I really liked that part. I'm all about I'm all about like the work smarter, play harder type of thing where you're getting stuff done, but then you're also treating yourself. So she wants you to pick a reward and then create a game plan to go after it. And she gives so many ideas, things that I would have never thought of. And I recommend everyone to try it. And I also liked how she said, it's not about the money again, but it's about instilling that belief in yourself that I can create cash flows of money whenever I want. And I think that's super, super important, especially for women and minorities, because that's not something that maybe we're used to being able to do. So
Yeah,
that brings up
that's not common messaging for sure. And she's like, no way, shut up and do it.
I love it.
Like aggressive about it.
Yes, and she doesn't focus on only entrepreneurs. She does talk a lot about offers and your services, but she also brings in these creative other ways, even if you don't own a business. So like asking your boss for a raise, or a project that you're working on, asking for a bonus pay on it because it's involving a lot of work. So she gets really, really strategic and creative with the options, which I loved.
Oh yeah, and she gives you the simple ones like cutting your other bills, and also like, what do you have you can sell right now? Like what is it? Like sell it, like get it out there. There's small pieces. There's all these she offers a lot of just different creative ideas, ways to look at generating that wealth, generating money in a short amount of time. So you enjoyed your challenge? Like I haven't done one. Like I read it, was intrigued by it, didn't do it. Welcome to everyone else probably who read the book, but you liked it. You enjoyed that experience.
I did. Yeah. The experience was great. The accountability group, she also mentions to get your cheerleaders. Accountability group was great. Otherwise I would not have even started. And I didn't reach my goal, but knowing that I have everything written out and I can go back to that whenever I want and actually do it is powerful for me. But it was fun with the group, just like checking in often via text and just, and then also identifying together, sharing what our game plan was. I thought that was really fun.
Yeah. The power of this community around you has a huge impact. And I think we've both seen this, that people are so influenced by the people we have around us. And when you have people supportive and invested and really helping elevate you, and while they're elevating themselves, it's so much more inspiring and empowering. And maybe that's probably why I didn't do it, to be honest. Like I didn't have that group of people to be like, let's make 10K in 10 days, which sounds like a mind-blowing sort of amount of money in the process in that amount of time. In 10 days, like, whoa, this is like months and months of work in my other life and in this and blah, blah, blah. So I think finding that community and those connections, I feel like are a key piece to sustaining that, even just for just 10 days, that much intention and much sort of focus. So that's great. I'm so glad that you engaged with that and like actually took her advice and dove in.
Yes, I think if I took her other advice of stop making broke decisions, it would have been I'm way overdue for hiring even just an assistant. So had I done that and then been able to not spend, my 60, 70 hours a week in my business, I would have been able to definitely reach the challenge. But, it's the day-to-day, those things that kind of limited the amount of time I could put towards the challenge. So again, had I listened to her, I would have had help in my business for the day-to-day and been able to do it. Yeah,
I love that point actually that she brings up about hiring a personal assistant. Like, I feel like I think she talked about other ways to outsource. She doesn't even talk about outsource. She's like, just get help. And here's one way called a personal assistant. You could hire them, and this is what she said, like $20 an hour for 5 hours a week. That's $100 a week. You could have someone as a personal assistant, do your laundry, get your groceries, do these things like, that you would normally, that just take your time out of your day, prep your food, maybe do some kind of simple tasks around your life that's free you up. So if you have 5 more hours a week that you don't need to be doing these sort of daily living activities, suddenly you have 5 more hours a week to invest in your 10K in 10 days, your business, your projects, like whatever it is you're working on to develop yourself and make better decisions. And she goes into this sort of next level of, and people have virtual assistants now, and there are ways to hire people to do pieces of your work, as an entrepreneur, like, this is sort of data entry work, or this is like a simpler job, or this is a job I don't do well. I need someone, a designer, a coder, whatever it is, the types of things we're doing. And she pulls out the John Legend and Chrissy Teigen example of like, let's just look at what, these two super wealthy, but really talented people, what they do. And she's like, I bet they don't do their laundry. She's like, I know they don't. They have a house manager, and then they have this other manager, and then they have this person, and they have this person. And she kind of goes through the personal staff of these two people. And you're like, whoa, they have all these people and they're all involved. And oh my gosh, a millionaire, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, the reason that they're millionaires is because they have the time to do their work, to be creative, to do their creative work, and they're not making dinner. They're not, doing their laundry. They're not managing the house, whatever, like cleaning, cooking, these types of simpler things, nor are they trying to figure out if they need to pay the bill or not. Like someone else handles all of that so they can be creative, they can be productive in the thing that they are there to do, that they're, invested in, and that generates the wealth for them. So you don't need to be a millionaire first to get help. And I had no idea it was so accessible. Like I could hire someone for 5 hours a week for $100 and never have to get my groceries or do laundry again. Amazing.
Yeah, she made it seem real and doable for anyone. $20 an hour, yes, we can afford that. And then also when you talk about the John Legend example, I was actually at my friend's, I was with my friend, she's a professional nanny, and I was staying with her at her family's second home in Suncadia, and I'm working and she's taking care of the kids, doing all the things that she does for the family. And that's the part that I was on, and We Should All Be Millionaires. And I'm like, Brandy, you're doing all of this. You're the house manager, you're the party planner, you're the assistant, you're the nanny, the chef, the cleaner. And I was like, you need to ask them for a raise.
Yeah.
But she listed all those. I'm like, wow, my friend does all of this. And
yeah.
So that was a great example for someone who's not an entrepreneur to see, yes, this is the value that I provide, and, then negotiate from there. So.
Absolutely. I hope your friend did. Did she take your advice and renegotiate some of that, or negotiate taking some of those duties off? I guess either way you could go kind of with that.
He ended up going to a different family, getting paid a lot more. So, and less duties. So
great. Yeah. Well, you learned.
Options.
Great. That's so good. I feel like that's a Rachel Rodgers success story by association right there.
Yes.
Yeah. Get paid for what you're doing. And if you are, the cook, the cleaner, the house manager, the nanny, and the, all these things, be hired to do all those things. Like it's worth it to be thoughtful about the work you're doing, the value you're providing, and not undervaluing your services, not undercharging for yourself. That's so great. That's a great story for your friend. I hope she's happier there. And I think people do
sure.
And that's the counterexample of that is, or where she was sort of this broke ass decision. Like, well, that's just what it is. There's this sort of attitude of well, just be thankful you have a job. And you're like, oh, that's so toxic. Like that mentality is just soul crushing in so many ways. Or this sort of acceptance of I can't, that's just what it is. And it sounds like, I don't know if she tried to negotiate with the current house, or not, if that didn't, who knows, but moved herself to a better situation. Maybe it took a new job, a new place. And I think people are not squeamish about moving to a new job or moving to a new situation if it serves them better, and making sure that you keep moving up, right? That you're like, cool, what's my next step? What's my next step in those moves?
I agree. Yeah, very important, especially if you have a job, because it's so easy just to stay complacent and content where you are. So
yeah, and I've heard that traditionally women rarely negotiate the packages for an employer. When you were offered a job, women are like, cool, I'll take it. And men are like, let's negotiate. I think any offer, if that is in your mind out there, any offer is negotiable. Anything people offer you, here's your benefits package. You can always negotiate. You can always ask. You can always have those conversations. And I think stereotypically, women hesitate to have those conversations, which is really just undervaluing yourself and limiting your own, your own growth, your own trajectory.
Yes, I love to see that open up more and see women do that a lot more than before. So we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, progress. Definitely making progress for sure. Cool. Are there any other pieces of this book? We've been blabbering on for a while. Anything else that you want to make sure we talk about?
Maybe touch on the history. I like that she brought that up in the first chapter. That hooked me. There was things that I didn't even know how things were, especially with credit, the Fair Credit Act and such. So maybe touch on some of the history. Sure.
And she starts with this story of Madam C.J. Walker. Wasn't that the beginning of her history story? Yes. Who's this? I don't remember all the details. Was she formerly enslaved, or her parents were? I forget. It's just 1870s. It's barely into the, I think, pretty early on in the Reconstruction a little bit. And she developed this sort of line of beauty hair care products. And she sort of was like the original, I don't know, the original salesperson. And then she has a salon. She starts making the hair care products. She starts teaching people how to then work in her salon. So she like grows. She's like this amazing entrepreneur. She then expands to multiple salons. And then she's like, wait, I need to make more hair care products. She gets builds more products, teaches women how to use the products, and then sort of be these like little affiliates out there and like almost franchises out, it sounds like, in sort of a different, in that sort of mindset. Suddenly she has this empire of people all over, women, usually all over the US, who use and sell her products and who kind of use her style, like, I guess they don't have her type of salon, but they basically are bringing her products out like across the US. And this is, I think, 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, where there's not, easy communication flow, easy product flow like there is today. And she talks about how this was actually the first like woman millionaire. And she was actually a woman of color, like the first millionaire woman who happens to also be a woman of color in the US is Madam C.J. Walker in this hair care beauty supply. I think she branches out into other sort of beauty products empire, which I thought was fascinating. I had no idea.
Yeah, I love that. There's a documentary on Netflix about Madam C.J. Walker too. That's where
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, super, super fascinating. And then she also says, women have only had about 60 years to build wealth and build businesses. And with that, we already have, many women millionaires and billionaires. So that, along with Madam C.J. Walker's story, is kind of how she was the positive in that chapter. But
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of negative. Like, and saying that women only have 60 years, previous to that, women could not get credit. Like, literally, you had to have your husband or dad, probably, who even knows, like a male who was related to you somehow, sign off that you could, it was basically their credit and they would kind of give it to you a little bit. Like, it was really different level of access. Women just fundamentally could not access credit, so they couldn't invest in their own businesses and their own selves in the same way as now.
Correct. And that law was the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, 1974. Mm-hmm. So that's less than 50 years ago, where women and people of color and whatever other discriminations that they used were not able to access credit. It was husband, dad, son.
Yeah. Well, I think she also talks about how then if a woman did make money, it was actually her husband's property. Like, women like literally couldn't own property for a long time too. And so it wasn't just that even if you did do something, and that's why Madam C.J. Walker was this like anomaly. She's like a millionaire in a time when that's unheard of, but also that she had access to her own business in a way that it wasn't her husband's business and she worked for it. It was her thing a little bit. And I think that sort of mindset of who owns the property also matters a ton. And that's an evolution too across time.
For sure. And then you compare that 50 years with the ability to access your own wealth compared to, over 2,000 for white men. And it's like, yeah, it really put things it was really scary, honestly, reading. And we know about the gender wealth gap and the racial wealth gap. They're huge, but the way she organized it in this book was frightening, but also like, wow, what are we going to do about it? This is real. This is deep. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And so I think there's this like, well, why haven't you done better? Like, well, for 2,000 years, you literally weren't allowed to do better. Like there was not just there was no opportunity. If you did do better, your husband, your dad, whoever was the actual owner of that fund, was the actual owner of that money. You couldn't get credit. There's just so many angles. And she does not pull any punches when she goes through that part. I remember it being pretty, it's stark and pretty intense. And so this is so she's like, it makes sense why women, and particularly women of color, don't necessarily have this mindset around, I can create wealth and be wealthy, because for the past 2,000 years, every message was nope. And every law and every policy, literally limited that possibility. And so just since you said 74, when that credit act changed, suddenly all women could access money and credit. It's such a big change. And so it's been, 46 years of that. And so it makes sense that the mindsets are still changing. People are still catching up. And I think that speaks to like possibility and potential, but also, well, yeah, obviously this is hard. Obviously there's a lot of ingrained, not just to mention stereotypes, but just those mentalities of like, well, this isn't for me. Like, oh, that's not my thing a little bit. When those are, I mean, there's not really those same limits in the same way anymore on a legal policy level.
Yes. And I think that my last thing that stood out for me on this kind of same subject is the believing that we're capable. So since this is something that is new, believing that we're capable, regardless of how strong our business is, how our financial projections look, none of it is possible if we don't believe in it in ourselves. And then she goes into believing that we can. And then she goes into forgiving ourselves. So like one of those broke decisions, forgiving yourself that you supported your narcissistic boyfriend is exactly what she says. Forgiving yourself that you have, student loan debts about your bad money management, forgiving yourself that you didn't negotiate a higher salary. So thinking in and the homework assignment she asked, or maybe I just wrote this, I'm not sure, but what are you forgiving yourself for? I think she did ask that. That was a really deep journal entry, at least for me. But because there's a lot, when I started my credit business, I knew nothing about credit, which is why I started it. So I had personal experience with bad credit, and I decided to learn about it and empower myself because I felt I was judging myself. No one else was judging me. It was just me. And I'm like, why don't I know this? This doesn't make any sense. And so, relieving yourself and forgiving yourself of whatever stories you have around money and the decisions and decisions that you made when it comes to money, forgiving those, and then you'll be able to move forward. That was really, really deep for me as well.
That's such a great note to end on, for sure. We've all been there. We've all made some not great decisions in the past and not, had to deal with the consequences. And yeah, it's okay to recognize them. And I think she doesn't say just forget them, pretend like they never happened. It's like, cool, recognize this thing. And my perspective on that is like, great, you're using that as a way to learn to move forward and like learn from that and recognize it. But I love that, that angle of like learn from it, but also forgive yourself. But you didn't know. It didn't, whatever, the situation was complicated. There was a lot going on. Now you know better. Great. You can do better. And I think that it ultimately ends up being very hopeful. You can forgive yourself and you have this amazing trajectory ahead of you.
Yes. Yeah. And then that helps heal that relationship, whatever it is, with money, healing that, then moving forward. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Tierra, for coming in and talking today. It's been a super lively conversation. I enjoyed this book. It sounds like, I know you enjoyed this book. It sounds like the audiobook is super fun because Rachel Rogers is sassy on the audiobook a little bit. And it's written it's written very conversationally. Like I could even hear her voice like reading it. Like, it's just like how she writes in a very sort of speaking style cadence, I think. So it's very accessible and approachable and hard hitting and deep and here's some history that's got a little bit of garbage, FYI, here it is. And here's some possibilities. And are you making dumb decisions? Stop it. Like she doesn't like mess around. So I enjoyed it. Super interesting. Gave me a lot to think about. It sounds like it gave you a lot to think about. It helped you raise your prices, helped your buddy get a better job. It's already like making the world a better place. So thanks so much for being here today. I've had an awesome time talking with you.
Thank you, Iggy. This was so fun. I've been looking forward to it. So I'm glad we were able to do this. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Books Applied podcast. I hope you enjoyed getting to know a new book and learning how to apply its ideas to make your work, sport, or life a little bit more awesome. For more leadership education-related content, including conflict management checklists, invitations to a fun free lunch that happens monthly, upcoming classes, webinars, and mastermind groups, please head over to wslleadership.com. Thanks, and have a great day.